people are struggling with finding a client, finding how to talk about the value of the work that they do, pricing.
I think that people make lots of mistakes with trying to work with everyone, and niche and early is the hardest thing you can do.
I seem to have lost my mojo. How do I become passionate about design again? Because I just don't feel the same way I used to.
The creative work is not the problem. If you're not enjoying your creative work, it's because something outside of the process is making you not enjoy it. It's like a complaint is only nominally about a person. It's more about yourself. Like if you don't like something that you normally enjoy, it's because something's not quite right. I think wherever you are, it's all driven by ego. The design isn't mine. I'm creating service. I'm creating value to someone. I'm here to do the best possible job.
There's a difference between art and creativity, or art and design. How do you help them flip their mindset around this? Is there anything actionable you can share with us? My guest for today's podcast is Radim Malinic, and I met him recently at the RJD Design Thinkers Conference. We sat next to each other, and we're both signing books, and there's a lovely gentleman, and I'm pleasantly surprised to find a new voice in the creative world, which I'm really digging into his work. He does beautiful work, and understanding his background and this book that we're going to talk about in a little bit. It's called Creativity for Sale. It's an interesting title. Radim's going to help us understand and unpack why that is, and I believe his unique background speaks a lot about why this is called this. Okay. So Radim, for everybody who doesn't know who you are, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit of your backstory?
What a lovely introduction, Chris. Thank you very much. I mean, yes, we met very much at that moment unannounced. So my name is Ren Malinich. I'm a Czech-born British designer. I'm a creative director at my agency called Brand New Studio. I'm the founder of Brand New Books, my independent publishing imprint. I'm an author. I'm a creative thinker. I just play with creativity, and I'm currently now on a mission after 22 years in the industry. I'm on a mission of very much giving back, problem solving, helping new creatives kind of have an easier journey into the whole process, because I've started not even at no ground zero. I started -5, staircases, trying to get up and work out everything bit by bit, not necessarily with people who knew how to, teach us properly, not necessarily look after our interests. So I'm very much, on a mission to give back.
I love that. I think there's a lot of synergies here. So for our creative audience, I want to start here with this book title, Creativity for Sale. I think a lot of people are like, wait. You're talking about a beautiful thing I do, Radim. I mean, why would you say this thing's for sale? Like, why be so transactional about this? Help me understand what the point of view and the lens here.
I mean, creativity is this sort of untamed, sort of invisible beast. However, creativity for sale is our meaning of how we go about and make living with how our soul is guiding us, where we go with it, and how to make. I mean, how to literally, that's the case. How to make a living, because creativity for sale. I mean, we can spend a whole podcast hour about this, just about the title alone. It's like, how do you say everything in 3 words? And so there was many different working titles, but I believe there's no shame. There's no. I mean, we can be humble about what we do, because lots of people choose creativity for sale as their living, and I mean, they call it something different, but that's what we do. I mean, creativity for sale stands for being a service industry, like actually working for people, providing creativity, providing solution, providing that sort of helping hand, a guiding light, just for people, just for others to succeed. Because what we do essentially, we aid the world with beautiful stuff, with solutions that should make the world a better place in a way. And creativity for sale, there's no shame. It's how to summarize, how to build a business.
Well, since you're talking about creativity and sale, then I have to ask this question about how does one put a price tag or determine the value of creativity? For some people, especially if you talk to creatives, they're going to say, well, it's priceless what I do. And then for some maybe more business oriented, well, no, there's a very specific price I'm willing to pay this. And how do we resolve that?
Well, I think there's a difference between art and a creative service. I think when you think about creativity in an exchange commercial value, it's how you deliver a solution for someone. I mean, priceless art obviously is something which is of a sort of subjective value, and I wouldn't see that as a creativity for sale. I think that's just that's the soul on exchange. Like you put yourself out there and you create something, and then the value is in eye of the beholder. Whereas with a service industry, I think we just create solutions, and the more experienced, more grown, more understandable you are, that's where your value is. That's where your value grows. So I think that there's no shame in sort of being on a journey to actually grow and grow into someone who is actually voice of opinion and value and expertise.
This is very interesting. We're very much aligned, and I think I know why our friend Rahul has put us together, because it's like, wait, you guys definitely have to talk, because you take a very pragmatic approach to this fairly amorphous field that we call creativity. And you say, there's a difference between art and creativity, or art and design. One is it's like an expression of who we are. That's the art part. And then one is more driven by solutions. I'm just curious, from where you are across the pond, what is the prevailing attitude of designers and how they feel about whether this is art, or is it in service? Is it commercial art? Is it a service we provide, or is there something more there?
I think wherever you are, it's all driven by ego. The ego. If the ego gets in the way, then you'll be asking for more money than you're worth. But I think the creativity. When I thought about it, when I realized that I am very much happy and content with who I am, I'm happy to be the odd one out. I'm happy to be me. Then you lose competition. You gain friends and contemporaries, because you provide sort of the solutions and the energy from from yourself out, rather than absorbing it. And of course, wherever you are, you'll get people who will like their ego stroked, and they think their work is amazing, and it's universal. Obviously, if your energy radiates out, then you can command any price. You can work with anyone. You can kind of work. You can be just universal and sort of and versatile part of the solutions, because you're helping others rather than what's in it for me. Because I think that's the problem when people try to see like, oh, I've showed up, that you've asked me a question to be here. How much are you gonna pay me? That's the wrong question. It's like, I've showed up. Thanks for asking me a question. What's the opportunity? What can we do? Like, how can I help you? When you start with these questions, the price always will be right in the end, because you align yourself with people and their philosophies and their desires. And that's what matters. That's what matters the most.
Okay, this is something that, at least here in America, the people I've spoken to, they really struggle with this concept. So let's dive a little deeper. Let's pull this apart a little bit, if you can, right?
Yeah.
So here we go. People in the creative space, let's just say designers, I think they are very centric, or like self-centric in their approach. This is what I should charge. This is what I'm worth, and I'm going to do this. But you're like, let's just flip the script a little bit here. Let's try to understand, how can I help you? And you use the term like, what is the opportunity here? And we need to line around that. So how do you teach people who are maybe a little bit late to this party about serving the person in front of them, versus this is my art, this is my design, and the prevailing attitude, at least in a lot of the younger, less experienced designers I have, is, God, the clients just get in the way of me doing good work. They totally missed the boat there. How do you help them flip their mindset around this? Is there anything actionable you can share with us?
I mean, I used to think that creativity was fun until the client came through the door. You have your ambitions, you're green, you're thinking you know everything, you're excited, everything's you got the energy, but you haven't got the experience. So you think that the creativity is being spoiled by the client.
Yeah.
Whereas when you've been around the block a few times, you realize the design isn't mine. I'm creating service. I'm creating value to someone. I'm here to do the best possible job. This is, imagine, where you're based in LA. You can't stumble across an actor within 2 seconds. They are hired for the job. Their art is their personal brand of creativity. Is their creativity for sale? So this is how when you flick a switch, when you flip the scene, it becomes selfless. When you feel selflessly about creativity, when you want to deliver and actually improve on what's around you and improve on the client situation, it doesn't matter what the creativity looks like, because when you accept that that's how the exchange is created, you don't mind the amends, you don't mind the changes, you don't mind the exchanges, you don't mind the delays or whatever, because you're creating it for them. Therefore, like, your ego, again, I think ego might be the conversation we talk about quite a lot, but it's when someone's really holding on the value of their design, is their insecurity, because you think, oh, I might not get paid, I might not do this, I might, would this be poor? Like it's all stems from insecurity. Because if we all had unlimited bank accounts, we would have such more fruitful conversation about creativity and design and art and illustration, because it wouldn't matter. It would be like, look, I love what you do because I'm comfortable and I'm secure in myself, rather than I don't really like it. Why? Well, because you might be a bit better than me. It's just, or you might have a better client. The fee might be a bit better. So it's all about having that inner peace and that inner calm about like, okay, you know what? I'm happy for everyone to have their success, and it doesn't matter, how the work is perceived, because somebody somewhere will love it. Someone might not like it, but somebody will love it, and that's the key. But it doesn't matter right now. Have I done a good job? Is the first and important part, because that's when you've ticked that box, then have you put enough of yourself and enough of your skill and talent? Have you made it beautiful? Yes. Does it work? Is it beautiful? Brilliant. Let's get you paid. And I think that's the change.
My question for you is this. You said I used to think like that. Clearly,
Mm-hmm.
you don't think like that anymore. Was there an inciting incident? Was there a moment when this came to a head where you're like, you know what am I doing here?
I mean, it's a growth. I mean, when you're young, you think you know better. I remember speaking to someone when I was 20. That person was my age, and I said, "Look, I've got it worked out. I'm 21. It's all making sense. It's all making sense."
Yeah.
And the person says, "Just give it another few years. Maybe 20, maybe more. And it's that personal. It's that beautiful thing about personal growth. Like the older you get, and you must know yourself, like the voices slow down, the voice is quieter, the pace slows down, or you're all of a sudden you're happy not to be running, because all you want to do when you start, you want to get, how do I run a marathon every day? I want to run a marathon every day. Okay, let's get shoes, let's bulk a mile, let's run a mile, let's run 5 miles, let's do this. That's what you want to do, because like right now the world is Disneyland. You can do anything you like. You can have any career. You can be any gender, any color. I mean, it's just, not necessarily
Right.
color, but like you can be like, it's brilliant. That's the box of sweets from Forrest Gump. It's there, and it can sometimes cloud our judgment, because what can I choose? What can I be? This is, and the older you get, you narrow down. The funnel of options narrows down. You've been more calm with yourself. You're like, okay, I want to do this, and I've know what my sort of working philosophy is, because I didn't know what my working philosophy was for about 10 years. I know what my aesthetical and egoistical philosophy was, but not necessarily the outward thing. I want people to receive me how amazing I was as an illustrator, as a designer, as an art director, video director. I wanted to be not accepted for that. But as soon as I realized I can actually create something meaningful with my creativity, and be more financially secure, more personally secure, like less anxious and insecure about the creativity, because all you have to do is put something on the internet, and you can either be celebrating or you can be crying because people don't like it. So it's just like this. The public arena is dreadful for confidence. Because it can help you boost, it can shoot you down in the same way. So it's just about growth. It's all about growth and understanding, and actually absorbing influences and understanding from different disciplines. I remember when I started sort of looking into more of a sort of behavioral science and psychology, sort of interpersonal sort of growth. That's when I became a better designer, because I've actually learned more about myself, rather than just improving my technical skills.
Do you think then it's inevitable, given your explanation or observation, that we begin this journey full of hubris, self-importance, and we mature and grow? At some point, we hit this place where we like you said, the voices quiet down a little bit. You check in with yourself. You become much more grounded. Like I get this very grounding energy as you speak here. I'm like, yeah, I relate to you. I understand. Do we have to go through that arc, or is there something, some brilliance, some intelligence you can send down the stream so that a 19-year-old version of you could hear and say, like, you know what? I'm going to skip that awful stage. I'm going to go straight to the good stuff.
Yeah, you see, I interviewed someone the other day, and he said he wouldn't change anything. Like he wanted to go through every bad checkpoint ever, no, being knee in that, no, being knee in mud. Like he wanted to do that. And I was like, actually, that makes sense, because you have to kiss too many frogs to actually enjoy the end result. Like, you have to do this because
Mm.
we can enlighten people. We can actually, if there's anything that sending, what the reason why I'm doing with my two new books is actually saying you're not alone. Like, it's not going to be pretty all the time. It's not going to be not ugly all the time, but you're not alone. You're okay. Like, I'm telling you, with the 20-year sort of advantage, that it's a bumpy ride. There's a lot of things you can do to help yourself for this sort of physically and from automation and like whatever tools we can use. Like, there's things you can do mechanically to help yourself, but the growth from within will take time. Like, I can tell you, and this is the industry that we're in. I can tell you all the right answers for you can actually shortcut those 20 years. But as creatives, if I tell you, go left or go right, if the right answer is to go right, everyone's going to go left because somehow we are sort of hardwired and pre-programmed to make those mistakes, to learn from them. But the clue is that I will not, if you don't go right and if you go left, if you choose your own mistake, if you choose that mistake, I will already tell you that it's okay to recover from it quicker, because sometimes our mistakes can take a long time to recover from. And again, that's something that you learn by growing and learning, that it's okay to make mistakes. And, everyone does it. Everyone makes those.
Well, I think your answer and your philosophy is actually pretty autobiographical. And I did a little research, and correct me if I'm wrong here, okay? So you had
Mm-hmm.
a pretty strange and remarkable journey from, I think it says like you were an ice hockey player, a music journalist, and now you're a renowned graphic designer running your own agency, self-taught too, I believe. So it's like you're sampling life and you're describing something of your own journey to it. Whereas my path in life was like, when I was 18, I knew I wanted to be a designer. So then I went to a design school. And then that's what I've been doing for the majority of my adult life. So, how has all these things informed your process and your design philosophy? I think we got a hint of it, but now maybe from a context point of view, our audience can start to hear like, oh, that's why he says those things. You got to experience these things and you got to feel your way through. And there's no shortcut, because that sounds like your story.
I mean, what I admire about you, Chris, that if you knew at 18 what you wanted to do, you were miles ahead of me, because I landed in the UK when I was 2021. I freshly finished degree in economics because I thought I needed to do something proper with my life, because pre degree I was very much in music. I was a musician. I was a DJ. Before that, I was an ice hockey player. But all of these things I've started with too long, don't read. Like, I wanted to join my ice hockey team before I could ice skate. I was like, I wanted to do it. Like, we can work it out. I wanted to join a band. I wanted to start a band, but I couldn't play. So I was like, okay, let's buy instruments and let's be crap. Let's be really bad at this. Then I didn't like my musical friends, so I started DJing, and that was like the pit of like, okay, I can play any music any day. I can I was DJing as a teenager. I was DJing like 5 nights a week because no one said I couldn't, and it was fun. And I kept showing up. I kept showing up. They kept paying me. I kept buying more music, and it was incredible. Like mid-90s and sort of late 90s, the best time on the planet Earth. I mean, absolutely, because you can do whatever you wanted. Like, the music was amazing. Like, I mean, it was MTV. We dressed like idiots. I used to wear shorts on my jeans. Like, it was brilliant. But you could do whatever you want, and no one said no. So I brought that logic to the UK because I wanted to be closer to the culture and design. But I still came with no plan. I was coming here as a sort of music. I wanted to be a music producer and music journalist, and I totally fell in love with the design scene because it was flooded with people's creativity, like a raw creativity. Every person I met was either a sort of budding producer, making their own records, releasing their records, making their own stuff. And I was like, oh, I knew I wanted to be happy. And you don't really get, people don't really know what to do with you when you say they want to be happy. But I was like, I just want to be calm. I just want to know, I want to wake up and know that what I'm doing today is going to be full of, moments that sort of can fill my soul with good stuff. Of course, there'll be some battles, there'll be some ups and downs, ebbs and flows. But at the end of the day, we should go back to the sort of the baseline and be like, okay, this was a good day. No, we're ready for tomorrow. And creativity kind of gave me that because, as I said earlier, like, I started in the very beginning at the very bottom, and just sample, work with people who were not good at this, who were people who were very good at this. I'm just picking up all these little interesting bits, because I see myself now more as a sort of product maker, not like a digital product maker, but more like, how do we put things together, and all the sort of sensory elements of my work, building a publishing company with physical paperbacks that are beautifully made, sort of considered, like, obviously, how do we rethink it, reimagine the theme. It all comes from, especially it comes from music, because England is known for inventing music genres at lunchtime. They're like, what should we invent today? This music or that music? Like, it's still an amazing place. It's a melting pot of influences. So I think it's just that unregulated creativity. If you want to do it, you should try it. If you want to do this, try it. Like, do you want to do mindfulness course for design thinkers? Yeah, let's do it. Let's try it. Like, it's no one says no. I mean, there's definitely the reason why failure exists, because the universe will show you where to stop. It's like, this doesn't work now. Let's try something different. But if it keeps working, let's not continue. Well, why not continue? I think that's the beautiful part of this. Like, you can continue and do the things because they grow. Because the things that I've decided to do 10 years ago are now flourishing. The seeds are planted, and I'm now harvesting. And that's the best bit, because everything takes time. Your Justin Bieber's and whoever's on a YouTube, on TV and radio, like, they had career growth. Like, no one just popped up and go, ta-da, I'm here now. So it's that open eyes, open ears, open arms, all the influences, inspiration, information coming to me, and I just sort of process it, and this is my output now.
Well, as a person who has a singular love for design, and you said, well, I fell in love with the creativity of design, but from the outside looking in, DJing, the DJ was the coolest person. They were the life of the party, quite literally. All right. They made people move and they made people feel. So my question for you, and I think you're a little bit of the Pied Piper here, speaking that you're blowing the dog whistle for creatives. Like, oh, well, if he can fall in love with all these things, I should have all these diverse interests too. So when do you know when it's time to pause the play and the joy to find something like design? Like, why didn't you stay at being a DJ or making music or whatever else you were doing? Like, how did you know when, you know what, I need to switch gears or switch lanes here?
I think there's a natural sell by date. Sometimes, some people are career DJs, some people are career designers, some people are career, what you call them, actors. Some people are just have that linear trajectory, whereas I was never your main room DJ. I was always a bit of a DJ saboteur, because I was mainly going out to play the music that I liked, on vinyl and that kind of stuff. And I wasn't. I think it all sounded good, but when people ask you, like, what music is this? Like, what? Why am I not dancing? I'm really confused. Like, because I was a bit of a saboteur, because I was playing like eclectic mixture of music. I was not a crowd pleaser. I felt like a bit of like an educator, like a sort of secret sort of music educator, because I played the music I would have wanted to hear if I was to go out. And I've had countless experiences in my life when I would go out and see and hear someone playing something really new, which was not for thousands of people, but only, let's say, for dozens of people. But it changed my life in a way of, oh, I've never heard this music before. Someone put themselves out there to create a mood, create atmosphere, to make me feel something. Because with everything that we do, we make people feel. Whatever you do, you make people feel something. You can make people mad, you can make people happy, joy, elated. But this is why we have those reactions, because like a reaction to your partner, like, someone that you want to be with, it's like, you make me feel something. They haven't done anything, necessarily, but you get that sort of vibe back, because like, oh, why? Because their being is not intentional for you to be like, okay, I'm here to exist to, for Chris Doe to fall in love with me. Like, you do your thing, and people sort of fly towards you, like, it's like that sort of beehive. And it's, I think it's just, we got natural sort of pauses and natural sort of phases in our life, because I just feel when I do something, I do it a lot, and I maximize this. With my career as a designer, I've done 30 years worth of hours in 20 years. I've done 18-hour days as long as I could do, until I was, flat on my face, impossibly, absolutely burnt out. But it's about maximizing the time that you've got, because our interests change. You know, you know that you were not educated when you were 18. You didn't know that would be your journey. So obviously, we all grow and understand and realize what our purpose and true north is. Like, what can I actually give to the world beyond my skill? Like, I just feel like creativity for me, like a design skills, is my baseline, is my ability to play instrument. I don't have to look down my fretboard to play on stage. And that's the sort of analogy. So I don't have to sort of think like, what do I press? What do I do? It's more about like, how can I deliver to people? How can I make a connection? How can I make them feel something with what I do? And how I can always rethink that concept. How can I rethink it that it will be fresh within its own idea rather than, aim for originality.
Now, before we went on air, I believe you said it was past someone's bedtime. So my presumption is you're a parent and you have a little human. Is that correct?
I've got 2 little humans. Yeah, I've got 2 little humans. And the reason why we scheduled this for this evening is because they don't go to bed easy.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm sure you know that.
So as a parent, I have to ask this question then. We want to look out for our children. We want them to have more love and less pain in their lives. And if one of your children was literally kind of retracing your steps and bouncing from interest to interest, do you just say, like, that's part of life's process? I'm not going to interfere. I need to let them explore it as I've done. Or do you whisper in there, it's like, hey, there's a couple of things Dad's seeing about you that you might want to try this versus that, or get to this point sooner? I'm just curious to kind of bring it home.
It's a really good question. I believe in leaving breadcrumbs. So they can do whatever. I mean, they already have, their lives are slightly differently pointed to a different direction than mine was, in a way. Like, they've got different sport, different activities already in their lives in a young age. And I just show them what I can do. So, I mean, they take a little bit to them it's the second nature that we've got a house full of books that I created, So they just play with it. My little boy's, he just about to turn 4 in a few weeks, and he just stacks his little card with all of my books. And I just look at him like, oh, please don't destroy them. But, it's that moment of like, their dad makes books, their dad makes posters, their dad makes campaigns, packaging, So we've spent, my agency is still going very much strong. So we're making, we work with ice cream brands and all sorts of different sort of things, products and companies. So their life is always like, oh, Dad did this, they can see that, they can make that connection. Because for me, that connection took 20 plus years. Like, oh, people like me can make that. I didn't know that. I was like, you'd have to be like special companies with special interest, whatever, because there was no graphic designer when I was growing up. Like, no one around me was a graphic designer. Whereas I am showing, like, I mean, they work on my Wacom, they work on my, they've got like Apple Pencils and iPads, and they make, working up Adobe Fresco, and they just, to them, like, it's absolutely unfiltered creativity. And I think, what they do with it, I don't know, but they'll be definitely answering the point of their soul. Like, they will answer in that call. That's what we've been given by my parents. Like, by their parents, like, this is the ingredients, So I believe that mixture of like, okay, let's bring in sport and interest and art and creativity, it will create something. And I think there'll be complex, interesting, creative people, because they already are overproducing. But I introduced them in my second book, called Mindful Creative, as a pair of comedians, because they are hilarious. They're absolutely brilliant children. Really funny.
4-year-old, and how old is the other one?
A seven.
Okay. Well, I can't wait for you to have this experience with your children, possibly, where I remember when my son was old enough to kind of figure out what I was doing, he'd walk up to me and say, Dad, I think you should change this. I think this will look better. And it's like, I got a little mini art director telling me what to do. And I have to smile. I'm like, okay, sure, buddy. Sure. Let me just work on that right away. Let me make those changes. So we'll see. You said that you like to leave breadcrumbs. Is the inference there that I'm going to leave clues for you, but it's up to you to either follow the breadcrumbs or not? It's entirely up to you. Like, you could save yourself some pain, or you know what, you get to enjoy life and do whatever it is you want to do. Is that the case?
Very much so, yeah. Because I've listened to some interviews recently, and people say like, look, we did what our parents did, and like, we follow what our parents did. Like, we could see, like, there was instruments in the house, we played instruments. There was, how many people say like, I grew up in a musical household. They're most likely musicians. They're always people like who actually go and do and follow something, because you show them the scene. Obviously, you set the scene. You show them the colors. You show them the windows. Show them the doors, and go like, okay, that's what's available. Like, are you gonna have a look? It's up to them. Of course, like if their natural interest goes somewhere completely different, they might be selling houses or being in finance, but that might be making them happy. I just feel that I'm 100% sure that my kids will choose something that makes them, that's their point of call, rather than, oh no, that's what we feel like we have to do. Because do we really need to do this as a sort of society right now? You could be anything and anyone these days. I'm going back to the original point. You can choose what makes you feel something and something good.
You have a very diverse background. This is like a two-parter question. How has your interest in music and journalism, your studies in economics, how does it manifest in the work that you do? And the second part too is, how does it manifest itself in how you manage your business? So let's take it one at a time. Are all these things that you're playing around with and exploring and finding your own voice in the world, are they making you a richer designer? How does it manifest itself? Or does it?
Yeah, I feel like I've richer conversations with strangers. Like if a prospect comes along, from the world of business, music, journalism, it's these ingredients again, like it's creativity, sort of like being a historian, but like journalist is basically like, how do you tell the truth? How do you portray the reality? And business, you put it together and you kind of find yourself having conversations that already have a head start. Something, if I was to say, hey, look, I've got very strong MacBook Pro, what can I do for you? It's more like, hey, do you remember that band from like 1995? They only released one album on this Japanese imprint. And somebody will say yes. And I have these most amazing conversations with people around the world, because music is connected, not connectivity. You can talk about books. You can talk about, case studies about, the Harvard Business School and kind of stuff. And it just opens these doors, because the world is more colorful, and it naturally translates into business, because we have worked with such a diverse range of clients, from Harry Potter to unsigned German American artists, like music artists. Like I treat it, and I direct the studio to treat it in the same equal way, because you're basically listening to someone's story, you try to formulate it in the most beautiful way, and then actually help them to position it for the outside world to actually be even better. So it's like when you go ghostwriters, and they speak to Keith Richards for 2-3 weeks, and then they write a section of a book. Like, someone helps you to narrate it, someone helps you to actually make a sense, so the broader world can see it. So that sort of diverse background, I think it's been a godsend. I think it's been a blessing in every single way, because it's just richer conversation with everyone you meet. You don't have to take notes. You just absorb and sort of open the lids and see, like, what's here, what's there. What can I do? It's just it's and I think what's the most amazing thing about it is because you find lots of people like me. I believe I'm not an anomaly. Like, you find lots of people like that, and actually being at Design Thinkers, having so many conversations with so many people there, I found so many like-minded souls, like either people who were lost and needed extra spice in their life, or people with a lot of spice going, I need a bit more sort of strategy and original and a bit more sort of focus. But we are unique in every single way, but we are complementary. Like, we complement one another in some way. We overlap around the edges. And that's what makes us sort of richer in the makeup and the creativity and society, all of it.
It's like, it's hard enough to be good at one thing, but it seems like you explored like at least 3 parts of the triangle that I can see in terms of writing. So expressing yourself through words, through music, either through playing or DJing or putting compositions together. And then lastly, through design, the visual aspect of this. It's quite an amazing triangle. Like, if you're also an actor, I think you would have all corners of this geometric shape. It's pretty awesome. I love how you say, like, there's like the things in the overlap, how those 3 spheres overlap, but also how, if you have more spheres to play with, when you meet a stranger, it's easier for you to find common ground and have conversation where they feel like included in it. And it feels like, oh, you can speak to that. That's pretty cool. And we love that. We know that when we speak about design, and we can make reference to philosophy through cinema, through photography, through art, architecture, and photography, that the other person looks at us a little bit differently. Like, you're not this singular, narrow focused person with blinders on. There's a lot more to you than this. And now we can have a really robust conversation about what it is that we're trying to do. Back to your original thing is like, how can I help you? And I think that's really cool.
I think if I was to add something to, like, I mean, there was the natural funnels, I think, in like natural sort of the road widens and narrows down, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So when you discover something, it's like a 5 lane, I mean, from LA, 5-7 lane
Yeah.
motorway. But then you kind of, you go down to like a single track, because there were times in my life where I couldn't imagine myself being anything different than a musician.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine myself to be anything different than a graphic designer or illustrator. Like, I wanted to be just that one thing, because that's when you really focus on what's in there. Like, you pull it apart from like that single narrow track. You just like, what's in it? Like, I want to explore everything that's on the walls. I want to explore everything of what we're supposed to make up of the situation. And then it just naturally just goes, and you add layers. I think that's not something you plan for. That's how it happens naturally. But there were times where, I'm talking now about all these sort of different spheres and influences and ingredients. There were times where I was just like, it's just now, that's just one thing. But with the age and the experience, it just, when you open that, and obviously you master certain sort of disciplines, certain techniques, certain professions, you become sort of comfortable, like when I talked about being a sort of musical virtuoso, like you can see, like, what do I do with the music now? Like, how can I help other people with my music or with my creativity? And that's the exciting part, because it's there. Like, you pick up your little menu of ingredients in your life and go, okay, what do we do with this now? Because you know more and you feel more comfortable with it.
Yeah. In terms of like how you use that background in economics, like how do you run your company? Is it because I always describe myself to people, I'm the exact marriage of my mom and my dad. My mom is a super creative human being, head in the cloud. My dad's a very pragmatic, like an engineer kind of background, is foot in the earth, in the soil.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a split person where I may not be the most creative person. I may not be the most like the most sophisticated business person, but together I make a pretty good combination. So there's these two sides in harmony with each other: the business, the logic, and the kind of emotion and art. And here you are, in your background, it's like in economics, and now you're running an agency. How do you run your business with these two sides or more?
I think there's the left and right brain, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
obviously you focus on, I mean, you get people who are just want to be in Photoshop all day long, or in InDesign, or whatever creative application they want to do, and they believe that's what they need to be doing all day, every day. And for me, it was always interesting, because I came to UK as a Czech emigre, so I had to look after myself. I didn't have the financial stability or the background or the network around me, so I had to go and sell. I had to actually look after myself and make it work. And it was more like a survival instinct, like you lock in and you're like, okay, so I can do this. I can be a designer. I can work with these people. I can do this type of work. And you just grow. Obviously, you pinpoint all the mistakes, you pinpoint all the situations you need to fix, and you become a bit more sort of lean, more better working machine, if that makes sense, in terms of like, how do you get new clients, how do you close, how do you negotiate, and how do you do this, and again, through time and experience, you learn how to do it better. So my sort of knowledge of business management, economics, I mean, it was from a different country, but it was more about the hunter-gatherer kind of instinct. Like, how do you look after yourself? How do you do this? Because no one else is going to do this for you. For me, when I look back and when I look across the board, like, no one is waiting for anyone's greatness. No one is waiting for the next top designer to come out. No one's saying like, look, there's a guy called George. He was born over there. We're going to make him the best designer in the world. Unless George wants to be the best designer in the world, that's not going to happen. And that kind of, I felt like I found this, I'll keep quoting this book, which I absolutely love, which is called "It's Not How Good You Are, It's How Good You Want to Be" by
Mm-hmm.
Paul Arden. That title enough is, you don't even need the book. And for me, it was like, I can be mediocre employed designer. And I tried that for a few years, and I didn't like it, because it just went that way. I just felt like I hit like I plateaued really quickly, because I was like, what else is there? I want to do more things. I want to apply for awards. I want to do, I've gone from career as a sort of obsessed typographer, designer, into full blown career as an illustrator in advertising for 10 years. I was doing all sorts of amazing things just because they let me do it. I showed up, I knocked on the doors and said, hey, can I do this for you? Can I do that with you? I love what you do. I want to be part of your narrative. And then just, you show up and you ask. I mean, this is, I think, the most biggest realization when I talk to students or up and comers, like, you ask. You ask to do this. You can point your direction of your personal universe in a certain place, but you still have to show up and ask. That's what you have to do. So that's how I found that balancing the creativity and business is kind of connected, because overall you talk about someone else's business and it's your business.
I want to ask you some practical things pulling from the book itself, Creativity for Sale. What are some practical, tactical things that someone can do to succeed in this creativity for sale world, where people are struggling with finding a client, finding how to talk about the value of the work that they do, pricing, dealing with clients who don't respect their process and they feel like buried in all that stuff. So can you give us like maybe your top handful of tips, and maybe we can then dig deeper into some of them?
I mean, the key is in being comfortable with yourself, because I love the quote by Carl Newport. It's like, it's not, be so good that they can't ignore you. Like, and I think it goes hand in hand with the other quote. It's like, you want to be a person of knowledge. You want to work on yourself. You want to show up ready, because lots of people show up half cooked, not even part boiled, and that's the nature of creativity. So I just feel you've got the fuel, the feel, magic formula, and superpower. How does that work? So with the feel and feel, it's kind of like a North Star. Like, no, you can be a slacker and then you can see a graphic design and you're like, I want to do this. I want to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I do it till 10 o'clock in the evening. That's your North Star. That's your feel. The type of design that you choose, that's your feel. Like, how it makes you, what it makes you feel actually. What does it sort of give you the reward inside? And then the magic formula is what type of design you create. Like, what do you make that's unique, that's your own? And your superpower is what will get you up at 5 o'clock in the morning and deliver, because you will get a few knocks, a few bumps in the road. And the superpower, your tenacity, your negotiation skills, that's what will make you work harder. That's what will know. And sometimes superpower can sort of knock you over, because you can be bloody minded and you can work 18 hours a day like I did, but that was my superpower, because that made me show up every day. But it was ultimately quite dangerous, because it made everything too sort of tuned up and too like, the volume amplified everything too much. But finding new clients, I mean, I think that people make lots of mistakes with trying to work with everyone, and niching early is the hardest thing you can do, because how do you know, if you haven't worked with anyone, how do you know who to niche with, what to do? You can go by your feel and feel, like, what do I want to do? What makes me happy, rather than people trying to find the market gaps and stuff. And you want to woo people, it's like, how do you get people to fall in love with you? That's the same story, because you don't go and say, look, I'm the most amazing designer in this world, come and work with me. You say, I think what you do, I really like it. I really like what you do. You're very good. But if I could help you in some way, we can even make it better. And you change the narrative. You don't go like, I'm an able-bodied designer. Come and get me. I'm here. The time is ticking. It doesn't work that way. You don't show up to a date and go like, I'm a pretty big deal. You don't go like this.
Well, speak for yourself. I mean,
I'm not a big deal. So. Yeah. It's making sure that you worked on yourself, that you created the right launch pad for people to come to you and say, you know what? Yes, we can do this together. So it's definitely, that's where it starts.
I do want to ask you this question based on this idea of fuel or your superpower, in that sometimes I do get people ask me this question, which is something like, I seem to have lost my mojo. How do I become passionate about design again? Because I just don't feel the same way I used to. I have my response, but I'm curious what you say about that, since part of your thing is like your North Star, the thing that gets you up at 5 a.m. They've lost that. What do they need to do now?
I think, there's actually quite a few different answers to it when you lose your mojo, because sometimes it's just losing your state, losing yourself. You can have a child, you can have other factors outside work that make your work make you not enjoy your work. Because I've debated that recently. Like, the creative work is not the problem. If you're not enjoying your creative work, it's because something outside of the process is making you not enjoy it. It's like a complaint is only nominally about a person. It's more about not about the person you complain about. It's more about yourself. Like, if you don't like something that you normally enjoy, it's because something's not quite right. And we are complex, human beings, and sometimes we pretend that we are very simple and everything should be sunshine and ice cream all day, every day. Of course it's not, because everything changes. The weather changes. We change. Like, we don't always have not the happiest of moods. Our chemical makeup's not always the same, but it's it's kind of like that. That's one part, because you can give the work to somebody else and they can think that's the best thing in the world, and you can be doing this, and your ego can kick in and go like, I should be doing better than this. I should be paid more for this. I've not negotiated the right price, or the client negotiated a better fee for themselves, so I'm not going to do the best job on this. That's your ego. The work, there's nothing wrong with the work. So the mojo is like, sometimes it's the acceptance that you're not going to have amazing run for forever. Sometimes you have to actually be brought down a little bit by the universe and say, you know what, appreciate, because when it's sunny, when everything's working, you should enjoy this. You should actually enjoy every single day and find that little piece of dopamine in whatever you do, just to make sure that you're actually doing something for yourself, because it can easily be stuck on a project for months on end that's got no dopamine. It's a battlefield. It's like, it's just, you can only look at the current state of the world when people are fighting, and it's not going anywhere. It's just, there's nothing there. Mm-hmm. So it's about finding the natural sources of little wins. Celebrating little wins is where, if something goes well, as miniature as it is, as minuscule, celebrate it. Good call. Like, someone replied to your email, celebrate it. Hey, this is good. Let's put it on a good pile. Because we as humans tend to focus on negatives, as you know. Our problem solving nature is because we need something like as a fuel, no? And we need a fuel for our minds. And sometimes we're just happy to focus on the negatives, even though we've got a cupboard full of awards and happy wins, and that's how it is. So mojo is definitely from within. Like, the world often is the same, if that makes sense. The work is often the same. It's just how your ego and your world, how your state, can be. Because I was in a situation when our son was born nearly 4 years ago, and I was tired. And I just published a book on branding. It was amazing. Like, it was a bestseller. It did incredible numbers. It was getting work from everywhere. I didn't enjoy any of it. I was so tired. Everything was like, everything on paper looked amazing. Yet I was like, I think I want to change a career. I'm not enjoying this. I've got the clients I wanted. I don't enjoy it because I was tired. And a few months later, things changed, and I was like, oh yeah, I can enjoy it now.
Well, your answer was much kinder than my answer. I'm going to tell you what I told the person who asked this question, and I'd love to get your honest, raw feedback on it. So I think they said, like, hey, I'm not motivated to do design or whatever they said anymore. So what can you tell me? And I said, maybe design is not for you. That in a world of people who are super hyper passionate, the people who have their fuel and their superpower, they're going to eat your lunch every single day of the week. So I'm not here to make you excited about something you're not excited about. Maybe friends told you should be a DJ and that's not what you're supposed to be. Or maybe they told you you should have been a journalist. And until you find your thing, the thing that really is like, you need no more extra motivation, because I don't want to sell you motivation. I don't want to convince you to become passionate about something that's coming from a deep place within you, that when things align, you just know. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's an extra few layers, I think, to that sort of scenario. I think if someone says, I don't think it's for me, I'm like, I think that's more than just a few nights, a few nights of a good sleep and a couple of invoices paid. But
right.
I think there's a natural pivot. I've met so many people in my life who are like, oh, I don't like living in this town. I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that. I'm like, well, then change, do it. Like, absolutely. Like, there's just many things in my life where just a number of clients that we had to get rid of because it wasn't working. On paper, it looked amazing, but it wasn't working. You don't want to be battling stuff, because I keep repeating myself, but the universe will reward you for making the right choices. Like if you trip yourself up, then mathematically two negatives equal positive. But in life, two negatives equal definitely more than two negatives.
Right.
It's if you point yourself in the wrong direction, then that direction will not reward you. Like if not, because you're making the wrong choices. So it's like, what is the good for me? And there's this whole sort of concept that I'm going my second book called Mindful Creative, about how we need to sometimes stop and reevaluate, like actually audit what you've created, because we go 100 miles an hour every day. Like we create so much stuff. We try to do all the LinkedIn posts and social posts and all the clients and all the deals and all the pitch decks and all of that. And then we try to be parents and partners and human beings and athletes and all that stuff. When do you stop? When do you actually look back and say, actually, you know what? I don't know where I'm going, because it all feels fine, but I just feel like something's telling me I should be doing this. But am I doing it for my soul? Am I doing it for myself? I think that's the key. Like, when do we stop? So because of these books, I have taken out a year of new client work, not client work, but new client work. I've not accepted any client work for more than a year now, only just been with the existing clients, and just make a sense of what I want to do. Do I want to push to the top of the pile and fight for the place in the spotlight, or do you want to service very good clients and do something that makes me happy too? Sort of build my natural pivot, because when you go to these conferences and then you get really old designer like, I'm going to stop client work. I'm like, wait a minute, everyone here starting up, and your advice is to stop in client work. How does this? This doesn't make sense. So I think it's just explaining how we go through these seasons of our careers and seasons of our lives that change and naturally sort of lend themselves to different things. So
It's one of these rare instances where I go to a conference and I'm so overscheduled that I literally, after our book signing, I had to dash out there and go to the airport to catch my next flight. So I didn't get a chance to see you speak. So I'm using this opportunity. What are you speaking about today, or on that day? What are you most passionate about?
so I have changed my content, if that makes sense. I've changed my content because, as you know, from my LinkedIn, my motto is, if you look and sound like everybody else, then you think the market is saturated.
Mhm.
And I've been on the conference stages for the last 10, 11 years, and I feel like I've seen the same talk, or especially like the mid-ground talk, every time. And I was like, I'm not coming home excited or empowered or inspired. I was coming like, I want to do something different. Like, in a way, like I want to actually go have people to actually go home and and say, we've seen this talk. We want to refer this to our college or our uni or our company. We want something which is, because everyone's really good at creativity now. You don't have to go to any amazing event just to see people presenting really, really inspiring work. Like, not a work that really it's technically incredible.
Right.
But when you speak to people off stage, everyone breaks the same. People still ask, in New Testament, like, people still ask, how do I get clients? Well, we've been getting clients for 200 years. We know how to get clients. It's not a secret. We get people going, well, how do I burn out? How do I stop burning out? Like, what we've been burning out for hundreds of years. Again, we can stop this. Like, we just need to share how we communicate and how we educate ourselves, especially about ourselves. So the reason why I did two books, I'll be talking about one of them. So we did Creativity for Sale, about how to launch a business, with a second book called Mindful Creative, about how not to break yourself doing all of this. Because people, we all break the same. We all break very easily, and it's just like, the content is about, offering people the content from Creativity for Sale. Like, okay, you can build yourself as a brand, as a someone who stands for something. Because if you stand for something, you have people for you and against you, right? No,
Right.
I think that's Bill Bernard. And it's just like, it's okay to take side. It's okay to take your position and build on top of it, and actually be, double down on it and see how it works. If it doesn't, you can change. I'm very much, if you've seen in the book, it's like, if you don't like it, change. Use this nugget and do something different with it. Like, you never know where it's going to take you. And so my main talk is actually mindful creative at the moment, which I'm talking very openly about early panic attacks as a child. I talk about, therapy. I talk about how we overload ourselves and how to actually avoid it, because it doesn't matter if I'm speaking to a mature crowd or a bunch of students. I'm currently doing these talks like almost once or twice a week, in person and online. And it resonates with everyone, because when you're young, you feel you're alone. When you get old, you think you're still alone, if that makes sense. Sometimes it's okay to have someone to say, you know what, everything's fine. It's shaky. It doesn't always work out. So for example, in Toronto, I did mindful creative, including breathing exercises. So teaching people like how to do box breathing, 4, 4, 7, 8, body scans. So my books contain actually meditation sort of section, like meditation files, just to slowly inform people. I don't want to educate or impose. It's more like, this is the stuff that helped me, and it was the stuff that I was rejecting for a decade before I said, you know what, let's do this. Let's help ourselves. Let's make a sense of it all. Let's go to therapy. Let's actually do this. So yeah, the second book is landing incredibly, because no one asked for this book. I'm curating my own content, and I'm investing my time and energy and my funds and resources to say, look, I believe the universe needs this. And and it's proven on data, it's proven on social listening, it's proven on on just validating this from conversations with my friends and colleagues. Like, it's proven on conversation from friends and colleagues that this is the common stuff. Like, it's our creativity goes in different paths. Everyone, if you want to be 3D designer or 2D illustrator or programmer, we go in our different corners. But we are humans. First and foremost, we are humans that break the same, that overwork, that burn out. And that's how we, even the stuff from Creativity for Sale is quite universal, about like, this is how you get your clients, this is how you get your business set up, this is how you look after yourself, this is how you get paid, the kind of stuff. So I've got a number of different workshops I'm doing as well at the moment. Like, we did a color workshop that's to unlock people's creative language, because it all stems down to experience as a branding director, like working with clients who don't necessarily work with language like we do as a creators. And there's lots of creative people who don't necessarily exercise their language as much as we should do. So we only see now in this last 10 years of the boom of a sort of designer content creator, when actually people speak on camera on YouTube, whereas 20 years ago, no one wanted to speak about anything. Like, here's my work, goodbye, So creating more universally, for sort of I'm like multifaceted people who can deal with everything, kind of break down the process and metabolize it and grow better and grow stronger.
It sounds to me like what you're interested in, what you're writing about in your other book, Mindful Creative, is about possibly mental health and longevity, so that we can have this burst. But how do you keep that spark going? I think all of us can start something and make a little bit of smoke and a little heat, but it takes a very intentional practice and a discipline, not only to take care of your art, but to take care of your mind and your body, and the three work together. Like, you can't be creative if you're broken physically, if you ache from pain, or if you're massively overweight, if you're obese. And you can't, I don't think, do this long term if you're a broken human on the inside, where you're suffering from so much like imposter syndrome or perfectionism or self-doubt and self-criticism. The question I have for you, and I'm mindful of time here, so I'll get you out of here soon, promise, is when I speak about therapy in Europe, I get some dirty looks and I get some not so nice comments. Don't push that American therapy thing on us. I'm like, oh, I didn't know. I was being vulnerable. I'm not trying to force my hand here. In the Italian audience that was there, I was like, whoa, that was a pretty strong reaction. I'm just curious, from a European's point of view, how is the general design creative community feel about therapy? And then I have a follow-up question with you.
I mean, I'm originally from Czech Republic, so there's a section in the book like how everybody around me was normal. Everyone was probably normal. Everyone was a train wreck, but if you admitted that you're not okay, it's like, it's a dirty look, like,
Right.
oof, what? And I grew up sort of with that vision of, therapy was something that people did in movies, like, okay, so there's Robert De Niro shooting a cushion, like this is a form of hilarious therapy. And it was only when I sort of moved to England where I lived with a family for a bit where there were people working through some stuff. They were actually working stuff out. And I was like, okay, so I can see firsthand the positive effect of actually working on yourself, like working through stuff. Because I didn't know for 40 years, then the first 40 years of my life were not exactly ideal in every single way. I thought they were fine. I thought I was like, look, I'm on top of the world. I'm working, I'm earning, I'm relatively successful, but my relationships were breaking out. Like I'm not a good husband, I'm not a good father. It's all about working out that the things that became sort of pre-programmed as a children, and young adult, have a massive effect on us in our later lives. Because you can be fighting with clients for almost no reason, because what are we doing? Whereas if you find that sort of, if you work on yourself, you're more of a sort of well chiseled article to actually deal with situations. You can actually listen better, like which is the important part. I remember in your talk, you did that thing that Chris Voss says, that you repeat things to people back. Like you make sure that they are heard. Whereas if you're not comfortable at yourself, you want to be heard. You don't want to listen to anyone. You want everyone to listen to you. So going back to therapy, we still got a lot of work around here to do on actually getting people to understand that it's beneficial for everyone. Because in a book by Dan Martell, he says, when you do things outside your work for yourself, you're actually helping everybody around you to be happier because you are more content within yourself. So, yeah, I'm very open in the book about therapy. I'm very open about suggesting therapy and lots of different ways of how you can work on yourself, because it's the number one thing I've done for myself. And all the work I spend in Adobe Creative Cloud, sort of making myself better creative, it was not almost to nothing, because therapy is what made me better creative. Because I've switched on my emotional intelligence. I've switched on like how I can understand people, and that's what makes us better, rather than still try to find our corner without any help.
I appreciate you for saying that. I think in some cultures, especially, I'll just say amongst men in particular, to say that I need help or I'm not 100% is a sign of weakness that we can't even admit. And so then now, not only do we not get the help that we need or support, but then we are kind of attacking ourselves like, why am I so weak? When in fact, well, I think what you were saying is when you were growing up, like everybody had all kinds of stuff messed up, but they had to put on this face and pretend like everything was okay. So I want to do my part in this world because I benefit from therapy myself, and that to normalize the conversation. I'm not trying to impose anything on anybody. If part of this conversation resonates with you, please explore it. If it doesn't, don't worry. I'm just telling you what's worked for me, and I'm just glad that you talk about it as well, because we do want to be doing the thing that gives us so much joy for as long as possible. It's like we want to play into the end of time, not play and then have to switch gears because we couldn't make it work. And I think part of that is to make sure you're okay. Your mental health is really strong. The question, the last follow-up question I have for you is this, is what are the top key takeaways you got from seeing a therapist? Just one or two things, because I learned so much from my therapist. I feel like it's a master class in life, and it was the cheapest education I've ever gotten and the most powerful.
I've done 10 years in therapy, and I've done just classic me, I suppose. I've done 5 or 6 different things, so I haven't been with just one therapist. I've started with cognitive behavioral therapy because I had some anxieties. I was so burned out I couldn't even cross the road or bridge, and I was so messed up. So it was what Rich Roll calls like mood follows action. So that you have to get yourself out there and actually do it, because if you still sit at home, nothing's going to change. Then I did. I think the most beneficial for me was marriage counseling, because that's when I unlocked a lot of shit from my past, especially from my childhood.
Yes.
So I got to understand that you actually listen to people, you step into their world, and actually take an interest and try to decipher what they're saying rather than what you think you're hearing. Then I did some sort of anxiety coaching as one of the things I tried, and that was literally just purely what I've learned there was like, actually do listen. Just whatever you do, just step back, let your intelligence, because our intelligence tries to bat in all the time. Oh, I've got the answer. Like, imagine yourself, you can't speak until somebody says stop speaking, which was really, really good. One of the therapists said, like, people come here because they don't want to feel bad. Yet what they need to come in to here to do is to learn to how to feel okay, not feeling okay. Like it's okay for our projects not to go well. It's okay to deal with the situation. We always feel like I've set the momentum, it should work, and it doesn't. And it's just like, how do you come back from this? And the last form of therapy I did was equine therapy. So I felt like everything. This is typical of my life, and Chris, this is like a therapy session now, because I felt that all the different knowledge that I picked up from these different sessions and these different years sort of congregated, like they come together in the last few sessions I had as an equine therapy. And what it entails is that you stand literally in a paddock with a horse. You've got a horse on the lead, and there's a therapist asking you questions, and you project in the sensations and the thoughts. The horse can sense it. I've learned so much about horses because I'm married to my wife. My wife's got like 6 horses now. She's always had horses in her life, and she's the one you want to have on your podcast, because she's the clever one. She's got a sixth sense, and you kind of learn about how we project and radiate our feelings and how we sort of operate. Because when we go to stables to the stables with our kids, and it's just, you feel like, oh, the horse is actually scared, like there's something I can do about this. And you learn more about the exchange of the information, like of the feelings, of like the non-verbal language. Is like, how do you help others? And that was kind of like where I've stopped for now, like, because I made peace with certain part of my life, and it's just so liberating. Because you can never tell your emotional intelligence, like to have a reaction. Like, things will still derail you, like things will upset you, but it's how quickly do you come back, because you understand yourself, how you work. So, we can talk about takeaways from therapy for ages.
This last type of therapy, did you say equestrian therapy? Is that what the word, or you said something else?
Equine, equine or equestrian.
Based on like horses, right?
I believe in America,
okay.
you use it, for example, with like the veterans, like when you've got
right,
like
I've heard of
real
this.
people with PTSD,
Yes.
then they actually go with and work with horses. And my wife is now, she's doing lots of things, but she's actually a qualified therapist. And it's incredible, because you're making a difference in people's lives, because you mend them. You get a broken article and you just send them back into the world, understanding more about themselves, which helps everyone.
I just want to pick up on something here. So the therapy is done with a horse, and you're saying the horse can sense your energy, your emotions, right? It could feel what you're feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is incredible to me, because there's just part that we think like, okay, we've seen it all, we've done it all, so we only understand what our eyes and our mind can process. But through science, we realize visible light rays, what humans can see, is actually a very small part of the spectrum of light. And so I've always felt this way, like when I was younger and I was a little bit scared of like dogs and cats, right? Like strays, and I thought, like, think positive thoughts, don't be scared. And I would see not a one-to-one correlation, but I'm like, oh, I think there's something here, that animals can see things like just the color of our mood, let's just say. And they can see that just as you and I can see green, red, or purple, they can see this. So it's fascinating to me, like they have that horse as part of the therapy. And it's really neat. It's so awesome to hear that you've been doing this for 10 years, that you've explored, consistent with your narrative, many different types. But all of this, I think, is for me to say, like, you know what? You're a very eloquent, well-spoken, well-read person, very calm and grounded. And I think you've done a lot of work on yourself to know thyself. And it's no wonder that you've been able to be such a prolific writer. And I've really enjoyed our conversation today. I want to encourage every single person here that if you've gotten value from today, go check out one of the many books that Radim has written. And he's mentioned a couple, but you've written the book of ideas, the book of branding, which was like really well received. The book that I was holding up, Creativity for Sale. And the latest one, I believe, is The Mindful Creative. Did I miss any books in there?
Yeah, it's just, there's 6 of them in total. There's a mindfulness journal, which was book number 4, and book of ideas, volume 1 and 2.
There's 2 volumes.
There's 2 volumes. They go from very colorful, very picturesque, full of illustrations and work examples, all the way to just illustrations and words. Because I think the value, if someone finds value from this, it's just like, don't wait till it's too late, because we've got this phrase in the book says, if you're thirsty, it's not you're already dehydrated. If you need help with your mental health, you're already in trouble. So it's anchor yourself so you don't drift away too far from the shore, because we are so good at telling ourselves we're not in trouble.
Yeah.
Because if we knew you were burning out, you would stop. Do we? No.
Mhm.
And that's the problem. So yeah, just try to work on yourself, because you will get so many rewards beyond just the mechanical and sort of technical knowledge. It's just, that's where the magic really happens, because you can connect with people in so many different ways, and the work becomes much, much easier to do.
Well, he's not just an ice hockey player, not just a guy who plays in a death metal band, or an indie DJ and a music journalist, a prolific writer, a designer, an entrepreneur, a public speaker. He's a real human being with real human needs and just real relatable. Thank you very much for being part of our podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Chris. This was a pleasure. Thank you.
And if people want to find out more about you, where should we send them?
I think we'll send them to my website, radimmalinich.co.uk. That's the links to everywhere. I mean, if you follow me on social, I've got far too many websites, far too many projects, far too many books, but I can be also found on Instagram. So yeah, if you type in Radim into Google, I'll pretty much come up as the first result. So.
Wonderful. I was expecting nothing less from you, a person who has multiple websites and diverse interests still to this day. And in 30 or 40 years, I hope they multiply over time. Like there's even more stuff for us to dig up. Thanks so much again.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, Chris. Hi, this is Ren Malinich, and you're listening to The Future.